What happens when a doctor's lifelong obsession with hell becomes his ultimate downfall? From a skinless woman rising from a bloody mattress to a mad surgeon transformed into a demon, welcome back to the realm of the Cenobites. Hey everyone, welcome back to Midnight Recaps. Tonight's nightmare is the Hellbound, Hellraiser II 1988. In the 1920s, we see a British Raj military officer named Elliot Spencer trying to solve the mysterious Lament Configuration. The box emits a spark, and he immediately throws it away. The room begins getting darker and darker. Soon, the box starts to open. As Spencer moves closer, chains with hooks burst out of it and tear into his body. Before long, we witness his horrifying transformation into the Cenobite known as Pinhead. So yes, Pinhead was once human. And judging by the way his transformation begins, solving the wrong puzzle can really ruin your day. The movie then moves to Kirsty, who, after losing her father in the previous film and escaping Pinhead and the Cenobites by banishing them to hell with the puzzle box, has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. She wakes up and finds Detective Ronson waiting for her to answer some questions. Meanwhile, some officers are still at the house searching for more evidence. They discover the bodies of the men Julia had fed to Frank so he could restore his flesh in the previous film. Back at the hospital, Ronson introduces himself to Kirsty and asks her to explain what actually happened at the house. He specifically tells her not to give him stories about demons or fairy tales. Kirsty simply tells him that sometimes those things come true, even the bad ones. Soon, Ronson receives a call from an officer at the house. They tell him they found a blood-soaked mattress cover and ask him to bring it in as evidence. Kirsty immediately realizes that it is the exact bed where Julia was killed by the Cenobites. If Frank could return from hell, then Julia could possibly do the same. And unfortunately for Kirsty, she's about to find out just how right she is. Later, Dr. Channard and his assistant, Kyle, discuss Kirsty's case. Channard describes it as interesting and delicate, explaining that she is a deeply traumatized girl who witnessed multiple murders involving members of her own family. The police brought her to the hospital, but she had become unreachable. Now, however, she is back. Channard wonders what she might bring them from the other side. They arrive at Kirsty's room, where they meet her and the detective. Channard asks the detective to excuse them. Before he leaves, Kirsty warns him about the mattress. She insists that they need to destroy it because Julia died on it and could return just like Frank did. But judging by the detective's expression, he clearly isn't buying any of this. After hearing Kirsty, Channard tells Kyle to keep an eye on her and give her something to help her sleep. He then leaves, claiming he needs to attend to another patient. Later that night, Kirsty struggles to sleep. She hears a sound coming from the next room, so she gets up to investigate. There, she finds a young girl named Tiffany, a mute girl who is playing with a traditional wooden puzzle game. Kyle arrives and explains that Tiffany is a complete mystery. She has no family, no visitors, and is completely alone. She never speaks and is obsessed with solving intricate mechanical and geometric puzzles. When Kirsty returns to her room, she suddenly hears a loud sound that frightens her. Then she sees a skinless figure writing on the wall with his own blood. The message reads, "I am here in hell. Help me." The creature suddenly vanishes, leaving Kirsty convinced that it is her father calling for her help from hell. The next day, Kyle comes to check on her and finds Kirsty worried and disturbed. She tells him she had a visitor, her father. He is alone, she says, and still suffering. Kyle tells her to get Dr. Channard. But before he leaves, Kirsty asks him a terrifying question.
"You got a ticket to hell?"
When Kyle reaches Channard's office, he overhears the doctor talking to Detective Ronson on the phone. Channard tells him to bring the mattress they found to his house. That evening, Kyle's curiosity gets the better of him, so he goes to Channard's house to investigate his doctor's secrets. Inside, he finds the mattress secretly brought there, along with disturbing items connected to the Cenobites. There are diagrams of a skinless Cenobite, puzzle boxes, several different versions of the puzzle box displayed in glass, old photographs showing Pinhead's former human self, papers about the Labyrinth of the mind, and much more. Everything points to one disturbing conclusion. Channard has a lifelong obsession with the Cenobites. But then Kyle hears Channard arriving. He quickly hides behind a curtain. From there, Kyle watches as Channard brings a patient named Mr. Browning into the room. He removes Browning's straitjacket and sits him down on the bed. Browning is a patient who believes his skin is covered in maggots.
Get them off me!
Channard has specifically chosen him because of his self-harming tendencies. The doctor hands Browning a straight razor and goads him into cutting his own skin to get the bugs off. Just as Channard expected, Browning begins cutting himself in an attempt to remove the imaginary maggots. He cuts deeply, causing himself to bleed heavily. And honestly, this is one of the most disturbing moments in the movie. Watching someone cut their own skin with a blade is already horrifying enough, but Channard is deliberately encouraging him to do it. As Browning's blood spreads across the mattress, hands suddenly emerge from deep within it. Julia grabs him. She soon rises fully from the mattress, now completely skinless, and feeds on Browning as he desperately tries to escape. After feeding on him, Julia tells Channard.
Help me.
He pushes the mattress toward her, allowing her to climb onto it. She then tells Channard not to be afraid of her.
Don't be scared of me.
Meanwhile, Kyle quietly sneaks out of the house while they are distracted. The next day, Channard wraps Julia tightly in medical bandages, making her resemble a mummy, and puts a silk dressing gown over them. When they are finished, Julia approaches him and seduces him. The two begin kissing passionately, and Julia tells him that what they need now is skin. Later, Channard brings a woman for Julia to consume so she can restore her flesh. Julia drains the woman's blood, while several lifeless bodies around her show that she has already killed others. Immediately after she finishes draining the woman, her flesh begins to restore itself. Channard uses scissors to cut the bandages away, finally revealing her restored face. Kyle returns to Kirsty at the hospital and tells her that everything she said is true. Julia is back. He tells Kirsty to get dressed because he is going to get her out of the hospital. He also explains that Channard has a puzzle box in his house. Kirsty decides to use one of the boxes to open the gateway to hell so she can go and help her father. With no other choice, Kyle volunteers to help her. They sneak into Channard's house, and Kirsty heads straight for the puzzle box. But Kyle tells her to wait while he checks the house first. Kyle heads upstairs and begins opening the attic door, but Julia suddenly startles him. He asks her if it is still here. She tells him she doesn't know. Unknown to Kyle, however, the woman standing in front of him is Julia. He opens the attic and walks inside, where he discovers multiple lifeless bodies that Julia has been feeding on. Julia asks Kyle his name. After he tells her, she walks toward him, grabs him seductively, introduces herself as Julia, and sucks his blood directly from his mouth. Meanwhile, Kirsty searches through Channard's documents. She finds a photograph of Pinhead when he was still human, along with a sketch of Pinhead. She realizes that this must be Pinhead before his transformation. Kirsty takes the photograph and heads upstairs to look for Kyle. When she enters the attic, she discovers the lifeless bodies. Suddenly, Julia appears and knocks her down with a slap. At this point, Channard already knows that opening the puzzle box will summon the Cenobites, who will rip apart the body and soul of whoever calls them. So he brings Tiffany into the room and gives her the puzzle box to solve. What he doesn't realize is the chaos she is about to unleash. Tiffany begins solving the puzzle while Channard and Julia hide behind a glass door and watch her. Soon she succeeds. The puzzle opens and 3 labyrinth gateways appear. The Doctor Cenobite, the female Cenobite, the Butterball Cenobite, and Pinhead emerge from the gateway. The Cenobites immediately want to take Tiffany's soul, but Pinhead spares her. He recognizes that although Tiffany physically opened the box, the actual intention and desire behind it belong to Channard. Before the Cenobites can claim Channard, Julia and Channard use the gateway behind them and enter the labyrinth. Meanwhile, Pinhead and the other Cenobites return through the gateway, leaving Tiffany alone in the room. Tiffany hears music coming from the gateway and, out of curiosity, enters it. Kirsty wakes up shortly afterward. Without hesitation, she picks up the puzzle box and follows them into the gateway, determined to find her father. As she wanders through the labyrinth, she calls out for him. Eventually, she runs into Pinhead and the other Cenobites. Kirsty tries to reset the puzzle box, but Pinhead reminds her that they are already inside their realm, so she cannot simply send them back. He then alters the physical form of the puzzle box, transforming it into an elongated diamond shape. Kirsty explains that she didn't open the box herself. She came looking for her father. The Cenobites laugh at her. Pinhead then tells her that her father is in his own hell, and that hell is quite unreasonable, just as she is in her own hell. He allows her to go and explore the labyrinth, telling her that they have eternity to know her flesh. Kirsty runs as far away from the Cenobites as she can. Eventually, she finds Tiffany. The two begin walking through the labyrinth, and Kirsty warns Tiffany to close the puzzle box so they can escape and seal the gateway permanently. She tells Tiffany that they are alone and have to help each other. But Tiffany, being mute, simply stands there looking at her with no concern about what is happening. Meanwhile, Julia leads Channard deeper into the heart of the labyrinth. There, they encounter Leviathan, the floating geometric deity and god of the realm. Julia tells Channard that this is her god, the god that sent her back, the god she serves in this world and beyond, the god of flesh, hunger, and desire. Channard asks Leviathan to help him, but Julia reveals that Leviathan used her as bait all along, specifically to draw Channard, a man obsessed with hell's secrets, into the realm. She then pushes Channard into the creation chamber. Inside, blood-drenched wires and blades slice open his skin and pull across his face, altering his body and stitching him into a blue-skinned, leather-bound Cenobite form. The chamber opens, and a pale, transformed Channard steps out. A fleshy umbilical cord is drilled into the back of his skull, connecting him directly to Leviathan. Channard is now a full Cenobite. His hands are heavily mutated and fused with metallic surgical tools. Scalpels, bone saws, syringes, scalp clamps, and long blades extend directly from his palms and finger sockets, allowing him to slice through victims like a living dissection kit. Meanwhile, Kirsty discovers a house that eerily mirrors her own father's house. She tells Tiffany to wait outside while she goes inside to investigate. Kirsty enters, and the house is filled with candlelight. She walks inside. Then Frank emerges from the darkness, holding his knife. He reveals that he was the one who wrote the message on the wall at the hospital, the message Kirsty believed had come from her father all along. Frank attacks her and smashes her against the wall. He tells her not to be naughty or he'll have to punish her, while continuing to make sexual advances toward her. Kirsty plays along and tells him she will do anything. She picks up a sheet and throws it into the fire, causing the flames to spread and set the place ablaze. Frank becomes trapped in the inferno with nowhere to run as his skin burns away. Kirsty simply stands and watches. Then Julia walks in with Tiffany as a hostage. Frank tells Julia that he knew she would come back to him because she is a girl who always keeps her promises. Julia plays along and tells him, "Oh, I do." Frank asks her to come to him. She walks toward him and rips his heart out with her hands. Then she tells him, "Nothing personal, babe. It's revenge for his previous betrayal." Kirsty and Tiffany escape, but Kirsty trips and accidentally drops the puzzle box. They continue running until they reach a junction where a massive wind tunnel vortex opens up and begins trying to suck them inside. Julia finds the puzzle box and eventually catches up with Kirsty and Tiffany, who are hanging on as the vortex tries to pull them inside. Kirsty pushes Julia into the vortex. Julia survives the push and tries to climb back out of the rift, still holding the puzzle box. Tiffany reaches out and grabs Julia's hand to save the box. But Julia's entire body slides out of her flesh as the vortex sweeps her away, leaving only her empty skin behind in Tiffany's hands. Kirsty and Tiffany continue running deeper into the labyrinth. They enter a room where they encounter Pinhead and the other Cenobites. The female Cenobite tells Kirsty that there will be no more delays and that it is time to play. Pinhead tells Kirsty that her flesh is what they want to experience. But Kirsty tells them she has information to share. She gives Pinhead the photograph she took from Channard's office. She explains that the picture shows him when he was still human and tells all of the Cenobites that they were once human too, before they were transformed. She urges them to remember who they were, their confusion, and their humanity. Pinhead looks at the photograph. Then he remembers.
I remember.
The other Cenobites begin remembering as well. Suddenly, Channard appears behind Tiffany and orders her to come with him. She refuses. Pinhead and the Cenobites go against their orders and try to protect Tiffany and Kirsty from Channard. Pinhead attacks Channard with his hook chains, but Channard effortlessly uses his surgical tools to break free. Channard drives a tentacle directly through the female Cenobite's neck, killing her. She falls to the ground and transforms back into her human form. He does the same to the remaining Cenobites, leaving them dead on the ground in their human forms. Pinhead is the last one standing. Channard tells him that he is taking over the operation. And honestly, this was the moment I expected a terrifying battle between the two. Instead, Channard makes it look almost ridiculously easy. Unlike the other Cenobites, Pinhead transforms back into a human before Channard unleashes a blade that slashes his throat. Meanwhile, Kirsty and Tiffany use the distraction to escape. Tiffany realizes that she has to close the puzzle box again in order for them to escape Labyrinth permanently. She returns to the place where Julia's skin lies and takes the puzzle box. Kirsty and Tiffany flee toward the core of the Labyrinth, directly underneath the massive floating structure of Leviathan. Tiffany begins solving the puzzle box, but suddenly, the Channard Cenobite tries to drag her away. Kirsty jumps in, and Channard grabs her instead, throwing her against the wall. He charges toward Tiffany again. Meanwhile, Kirsty disguises herself in Julia's skin. She returns and grabs Tiffany, making it look as though she is helping Channard. The Channard Cenobite lowers his weapon, believing that she is Julia. Kirsty kisses him to distract him while Tiffany continues solving the puzzle. Finally, Tiffany realigns the puzzle box back into its original form, causing the Leviathan tether connected to Channard's skull to be severed, while the chamber crushes and decapitates him. Kirsty removes Julia's skin and runs to escape before the gateway closes. The giant geometric structure begins emitting intense beams of dark energy and light as its hold over the dimension starts to break down. Kirsty and Tiffany manage to escape just before the gateway closes. They look at each other with relief, knowing that they are finally free. Overcome with relief, Kirsty and Tiffany walk out of the hospital, leaving the nightmare behind. But of course, with this movie, Hell doesn't exactly believe in retirement. Sometime later, two movers enter Channard's abandoned home to clear out his belongings. One of the movers discovers the bloody mattress where Julia died and was originally resurrected. He moves closer to inspect it. Suddenly, hands reach out and pull him into the mattress. The other mover goes upstairs and witnesses a tall, gory wooden column known as the Pillar of Souls slowly rising from the mattress. The pillar is carved with screaming faces. Fused into its side is the face of the puzzle guardian, who looks at the terrified man and asks,
What is your pleasure?
That's the end of tonight's recap. If you made it this far, you clearly enjoy horror recaps. Subscribe so you don't miss the next terrifying story. What did you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're craving another terrifying story, tap the video on your screen right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one.